Watch this review here with a look at the DC Superheroes exclusive white Man Bat. Now, as you've probably noticed, this isn't the original packaging. I bought the figure loose, and the seller had quite the sense of humor, choosing to put the figure in the DC Universe Classics Man Bat box, and even going so far as to include a Collect and Connect piece. In this case, Gigantus arm. Gotta love it. Since I already reviewed the Classics Man Bat, I'm not going to go into as much detail on the articulation, because it's the same sculpt, same articulation. Instead, I'll just encourage you to check out this video, which to me is a pretty cool video. Don't worry, I will cover all the main points for articulation in this video as well, though. Quick comparison. Now, although these are the same sculpt, they just have completely different paint jobs. No, I don't just mean the fact that one's white, one's brown. I mean, even the texturing of the paint itself is completely different. Like, this almost has like an added layer of gloss on it, whereas this doesn't. The end result is that the Classics Man Bat looks more like a traditional action figures paint job, while the Comic-Con exclusive version looks more like a custom. And before anybody brings it up, yes, I am pretty sure it's the real deal, even though it didn't come with the packaging, which kind of doubles as a certificate of authenticity. Getting back on point, the two biggest differences are in the wings and the jeans. Now, the Classics Man Bat has translucent wings with a thin layer of paint, but most of it's just the natural color of the plastic, where the wings on the DC Superheroes version are completely painted in, with various textures and so forth, which gives it a lot more color, and even the veins have their own unique color to the figure. But you do lose the more realistic look of the translucency. The other big difference, as mentioned, is the jeans. The shade is completely different, and there's just a lot more shadowing and so forth in terms of effect, whereas the pants on the Classics version were kind of a disappointing point for me. I mean, the only really cool parts was they had a huge amount of sculpting here, a little color difference, but I mean, this just looks so much more incredible in terms of paint. And if you're trying to decide which version to go with, let me just do a quick comparison and just spin them around. I mean, obviously the brown is the traditional color, but the Albino version has a much nicer paint job. Price-wise, funny enough, I mean, they're kind of comparable. I mean, I've seen a lot of listings close for cheaper than some of the more costly mint and box listings for the Man Bat have closed at. Although usually when these have a buy it now, they're in like the 50 range, but you can do a lot better than that. I picked this up for, I think it was like $22, including shipping and handling, but of course it didn't have the box. But I barely missed out on getting an auction where I would have got it with box just a few hours before, which I think ultimately closed at about $24.50, I think. I really don't even know why I'm commenting on that, just because it's probably a kind of irrelevant point. But I mean, some people are more about trying to find a decent price than others, so I just thought I'd toss that out there. Now, I tossed in the Imperiex Wave Batman there just for scale. He's the same height as every Batman, I believe. The problem with the Man Bat figures is that the legs have a really varying height depending on how you sculpt, how you pose it. So, there are two joints here, and at the more extreme you can have it really tall, or if you push them in a good deal, that's really stiff, it will go a lot shorter. One second. Really stiff joints in this figure. I assume that whoever owned it just didn't mess around with a lot. And really, you probably don't want to, just because once you get to stand just the right way, the legs should kind of stay fixed. But yeah, as you'll see, it can be either shorter or taller than a lot of figures, just depending on how you manipulate the legs. Okay, Batman's out of the way, and let's have a closer look at this figure. As previously mentioned, the veins have a unique color pink to them. This color pink is not found anywhere else in the figure. It only pertains to the veins. This purple is repeated on the ears. The wings themselves have a light purple base paint, and then it looks like, I guess, almost like they penciled in with the additional color, the deeper purples, which gives a lot of real depth to the color, in addition to, just having a really nice shadowing effect. Now, the fur on the body's many different shades, which I don't like too much. They penciled in some darker areas here with, I guess, like a black paint. But on the back here for the mane, it really sticks out because it's just a really white color. Like, they didn't bother doing too much with it at all. I mean, down towards the bottom, it's like the same kind of a blue highlight that's prevalent all along the back of the figure. Which is actually kind of weird too when you think about it, because that blue's not really present all that much in the figure either. It's just over here on the upper arms, a little over here for shadowing. Although it's just a really neat effect. I mean, the amount of paintwork and so forth that went into this figure is a little bit staggering, considering that Mattel isn't generally known for, I guess, their high fidelity to color. But because the figure was released only at these conventions, I guess they probably decided to go more all out. Oh, by the way, gather round, folks, and hear the legend of the Albino Man-Bat. This is actually kind of cool. Now, I heard this story, and I'm not sure how true it is, but now, originally they were going to use the first colors for Man-Bat, and they were thinking of releasing him in the general DC Superheroes wave, but they ended up just aborting it for some reason. And then, like, when they were going to release him at the conventions and stuff, they created this really cool box, this dark cave effect. But then when they put the brown figure in there, it just wasn't getting the effect they wanted, so they decided to go back, retool it, and make white Man-Bat just to get the use from the accessory, which of course is the packaging. Now, if that's not the craziest story you've ever heard, I don't know what is. Which is why I kind of doubt it, but I mean, it's just a little cool piece of maybe trivia for you. And, might I add, the bodies were never found, or so the legend goes. And they say you can still hear the haunting calls in the hills. In fact, come to think of it, that all happened about 13 years ago to this very day. Ooh. Now, obviously, the figure only came out about 4 or 5 years ago, so story's probably not as impressive, and as far as I'm aware, nobody actually died. As far as I'm aware. Now, the arms on this are even more problematic than they were on the Classics version. I guess they might have done something to improve the sculpt a little bit. Or maybe it's just wear damage. As mentioned in the other one, the head does not move up and down a tremendous amount. However, it's cool because the beady eyes really show out with the darker eyeshadow here. I really don't like how you can't really get a really good flying look here, though. But I guess if you move the torso back far enough, the head does look like it's facing forward. Full range of motion, basically. Goes 360 though. Ab/diaphragm, waist will go full 360. Leg goes up, forward, back, but not out. Which is, I guess, is a sign of the times. You've got the joint here and joint here. And as mentioned, the paint is a pretty cool effect. It's the brown from the chest, or the darker white, is actually repeated down here in the legs. The only problem is the nail color is different from the toenails to the fingernails, and you'd kind of expect them to be the same color. All in all, very nice figure. great looking colors. They have just so much different color detailing and so forth that, I mean, it's something you really wouldn't expect. Between this and the other version, you might want the classics just because it is the traditional color. However, there is one other version of the figure out there, another exclusive convention one, which is clear through. I guess kind of represents the transformation between Langstrom and Man-Bat.